All is a blessing. It is another powerful edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. Come on in, come on in. All is truly and indeed a blessing. If you can just see, open that third eye and just see beyond the veils. Come on in, y'all. Welcome. Greetings, beloved Infinite One lives. I'm truly honored and grateful. Come on in, beloved. Peace and love to you and to the family. Welcome, 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 Shemafia. Welcome, beloved Shemafia Rothschild, Leroyer. Yes, greetings, beloved. Salutations, joy and prosperity. Come on in. All is truly and indeed a blessing. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, Blog Talk Radio. All is a blessing. Wherever you are, wherever you're sitting right now, wherever you're listening, from wherever you're sharing, I invite you to come on in, come on in, come on in. Come on in, wherever you are in the world, come on in. Greetings, Russia, greetings, China. Welcome, India. Welcome, Pakistan. Thank you so much, Bangladesh, Australia, Indonesia, South Africa, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, Kenya, welcome, welcome Ethiopia, welcome Cameroon, welcome Nigeria, welcome Ghana, Niger, welcome Egypt, Morocco, Spain. Come on in, France. Come on in, Germany. Come on in, Poland. Oh my goodness, come on in, Brazil, Argentina, Peru, of course the United States and the UK. Come on in. Austria, thank you so much, Austria, Italy, Mexico, Canada. Indeed, we have an international audience from which we are sharing this sacred space. So come on in, enjoy, share in love, share in peace, share in truth, share in understanding. Indeed, fungi alafia, ashe, ashe. Greetings, beloved Chef Bougie, welcome. I'm sure the Queen, Iya Orisha, will be right behind you shortly. Greetings, Evelyn Preston, thank you so much. I'm grateful for my consistent audience, my regular listeners and participants. My cousin is here with us again today. Oloye, Ifawole, Oladeji, Efuntade will be forward with us momentarily. Greetings, beloved. S. Marie, welcome, beloved. Welcome, Angelic Empress. Greetings, beloved. Come on in for my first-time participants. Come on in for my regular participants. Please feel free to co-host with us.
Come back home to Africa. Come back home. Come back home to Africa. Come back home.
Okay, that didn't work, did it? Greetings, greetings, peace and blessings, joy and prosperity. Indeed, it's another rendition, powerful edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. I would be remiss if I didn't say Eshu Elegbuana Kosi Were. Awu Unlo Uto Ni Iwo Ada Afan Bo Osi Obatalami Ita Ne Epo Onilio Avani Shu. Eshu is the respected elder who flogs, confronts, uncovers fools, that one versed in mysteries uses truth to own you. He causes scatter to feed poverty. Obatala shakes rascals to have sacrifice. The owner of warnings is the one who is Eshu, Aboru, Aboye, Aboshishe, Ashe. May I ever reach a room. May I ever be accepted. And indeed, may I ever allow what we desire to come to pass. And so we say, Ashe. Divine, all blessed greetings and salutations. You are now sitting once again live and always in archive at your leisure and convenience with my cousin and myself for another powerful edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo. I am Pan-African Spiritualist, Practitioner, author, and advisor, Elagoon, Oloye, Hoodoo, Obeya, Bokur, sharing with you in all things spiritual, mystical, metaphysical, cosmic, evolutionary, revolutionary, healing, and holistic from a Pan-African Hoodoo world spiritualist perspective. And my cousin, the beloved Oloye, Ifawole, Oladeji, Efuntade, Chief Priest, Baba Awo of Isese, Oladeji, Inner Consciousness Spiritual Center. And he also will be sharing with us from an Ifa perspective. And at some point we'll get together and we'll kind of rewrite my intro. And I'm going to allow him to introduce himself and find his own space. He's new at this. So right now I'm still kind of pulling from my script, but indeed we'll blend as we continue to move forward, as we are consistent here with you in our demonstration. Today indeed is Wednesday, Mercredi, April 7th, 2021. And I am emanating and vibrating with you and for you live, virtually, verbally, cosmically, quantum universally from this working temple of the House of the Divine Prince. And of course, my cousin is coming forward from IleIfaOladeji, Inner Consciousness Spiritual Center. Before we move forward, understanding that the creation of sacred space is critical to all that we say or do or demonstrate, particularly when we're talking about spirituality and religion, when we're talking about consciousness, when we talk about inner standing. So words and how we use words are very important. Words indeed have power. Words indeed carry codes. Words indeed have multiple meanings. And then those words and that word usage is adjusted by the community, the ethnic group, the family, the group of friends, indeed siblings. Me and my sister have a way of communicating. Me and Wapani have a way of communicating without ever opening our mouths and hold a whole conversation with others present and no one understand a word that we're saying. So there is great power in what we say. The ability to create and recreate our reality lies in our mouths. And I would say that it is a genetic inheritance, a biological inheritance, a spiritual inheritance, as indeed children of the Most High, representatives of this great power that we call by various names. And again, we want to talk about words and word usage before we settle in on my subject matter today. We have a calendar that we acknowledge within ATR, within the traditions. It's a moon calendar as opposed to the sun calendar that we've been, following globally under this present Western demonstration. And so there are certain deities, certain Lowa, certain Orisha that we invoke systematically by following sort of this calendar system. And today is a day that I would give honor and respect and do feed to Sagbo and Bade. We know them in Voodoo as Sakbo and Bade. They have many of the same, or similar, I should say, similar characteristics as Shango and Oya. And many of you are acknowledging Shango and Oya today. I want to add another spirit, lesser known Voodoo Loa. Agagu is a very violent god. Earth tremors and the frightening sounds associated with storms are associated with Agayu. The trances induced, the mounting induced in a ceremony by Agayu are violent. There have been deaths associated with his brutality. And when one is mounted by Agayu, one attempts to imitate the sounds of thunder and tremors. If they are strong enough to utter sounds under possession, the possessed person keeps repeating phrases like, "It is I who am the gunner of God. When I roar, the earth tremors." It is said that when the earthquakes happen and the earth tremors take place, that Agayu is angry. And those who are strong enough to keep him in their bodies under a possession are puffing with all their strength and sputtering with all their might to contain such a violent and powerful storm. Agayu is a companion partner to Sogbo. And Sogbo is also commonly associated in Voodoo with Bade. Bade, the wind. And so they act together to create, and we often say fire, but really it's Shango's father who's more associated with the element of fire. I have been taught, and I see Shango as more electromagnetism, static electricity, the manner in which electricity moves through our bodies and through the earth and through our consciousness to sort of fine tune, if you will, our frequencies to our present moment in time space. Indeed, we all jump when we feel and hear and see the association of thunder and lightning and wind in association. And of course, in their more extreme demonstrations, there might be a bit of fear. And non-ATR practitioners, non-Voodoo practitioners don't quite get Oriki in Yoruba, don't quite get praise names, don't quite get this sort of amalgamation, if you will, of chant, mantra, prayer, rhythm, breathing that's associated with the Riki, or the telling, retelling, or calling of the names of these powers. And so when we look at Christianity, for instance, Elohim, El Shaddai, Adonai, Yahweh, you have various names which vibrated at different frequencies, different mathematical equations, but at its most basic level represent the various demonstrations, if you will, of God. And so we chant various names, various Oriki that chant or vibrate a code, if you will, with a certain power, with a certain natural force that we systematically connect with every 4 days under this moon cycle that we move through in ATR traditions. So I wanted to talk a little bit today, and I kind of caught my cousin off guard just a little bit, because we did talk about show topics, and I have a show topic that we're going to bring on the next show that we shared in chat. But I really wanted to talk about magic and the supernatural in the African American slave culture and society. Because again, we are sort of taught that, I'm gonna sing a little bit of Erykah Badu. They don't know their language, they don't know their gods, They take what they give, even when it's hard. Some of y'all know the song, you know, and so we've believed that, at least for the last 100 years, 200 years, we believed that we didn't have a God, didn't have a past, didn't have a ethnicity outside of black, outside of property and at one point, shadow at one point in our history. But the idea that we lost our God, our spirit connection, our power because of enslavement, we now understand it's a misnomer. It's not entirely, it's a relative truth, but it's not an absolute truth. And so indeed, our practices, our traditions had to go underground. And often in many of the materials that we find in terms of going through archives and books, you know, to pull up some of the subject material that I bring to you, we always have to remember who wrote the book, who wrote the document. I'm going to pull a little bit today from Mara McNamara, and this paper was written for a history course, Transformation of the Witch of American Culture. The course was taught by Professor Carol Carrison in the winter of 2010. But I found it to be very interesting. Some of you know me and my proclivities and my issues and with word usage, and that voodoo is not witchcraft, voodoo is not magic. But often, again, when you go back in these documents, go back in time in these documents, 50 years, 100 years, you're often going to see word usage and word language that has evolved that we don't use today, and might have still that taint of white supremacy and racism on it. And although historians have previously explored the role of magic in the African American culture, the most specific questions of how slaves defined supernatural agency from their own perspective has really yet to be investigated. The purpose of the research is to examine slave folklore and personal testimonies about the paranormal to ascertain the beliefs and practices of supernaturalism among enslaved people in the antebellum American South. Analyzing how those sources portray instances of bewitchment, voodooism, and spiritual possession, the author assesses their impact on the slave experiences. Furthermore, investigating the inconsistency between evil spirits, inhabitants of slave individuals, cited in oral histories with the protective and healing conjuration activities attributed to slaves in the secondary sources. While folk tales cite victimization by voodoo or bewitchment as punitive measures, and former slave interviews depict fear affiliated with presumed witches and spirits, supernatural practitioners were highly regarded within their communities. Thus, in evaluating how slaves understood supernatural, the author seeks to reconcile its negative connotation within a culture that simultaneously embraced magical practices. Because while we were being Christianized at one point in the history, the timeline of enslavement, and having our connection to root culture and root tradition sort of being crushed and suppressed, the greater community, the oppressors, the white community, was indeed experimenting and exploring and enjoying hoodoo and seances and connecting to spirit for their benefit, and indeed would come to our community, particularly right here in historic Treme, particularly right here in Lafitte, particularly right here in Iberville, particularly right here in the French Quarter. They would indeed cross Rampart Street and come into this community and find and experience many practitioners who didn't have big names, who didn't have big titles, who weren't popularized to the degree that Marie Laveau was, but indeed, in many cases, predated, were predecessors to Marie Laveau and Voodoo, as we now know it in New Orleans, but also were contemporaries, practiced alongside her within the community at the same time, indeed, as she did. Much has been written about the African American religious experience that highlights the importance of magic in slave culture. And these sources demonstrate that practices associated with spirit worship were indeed incorporated into the slaves' daily routines, such as healing rituals, conjuration practices, and of course, religious veneration. However, the question of how slaves actually perceived spiritualism is rarely addressed. Historians have been more inclined to examine the creation of a distinct slave religion, structured in part by their lost heritage and in part by their New World experiences. To that end, researchers have interpreted slave narratives and music, missionary records, and folk tales to understand our slave theology and its function in the community. And despite the number of books published in this particular era, no single work provides a definitive view of slave religion, probably because the topic is too broad and complex to address in a single book. And historians who have attempted this feat have actually narrowed their scope, resulting in an emphasis on one feature of slave culture while perhaps overlooking others. Thus, this work focuses on religion in relationship to spirits in the slave society of the Southern American states in order to deduce what slaves believed about the spiritual world. Because it's one thing to say, we didn't have books, we weren't book writers and authors of that time. Of course, if no one, within the community tells a story, it's then left up to those outside of the community to either overlook our story or, in many cases, misrepresent the story. I would also like to sort of, as always, give a sort of a result-oriented foundation to this discussion in terms of how these practices and traditions and belief systems continue to support us here today. And not only support us here today, but are gaining great popularity and levity as we continue to move forward, technologically, intellectually, spiritually. Hola, mama. Greetings, beloved. ¿Cómo estás, mami? Welcome for being a part of the show today. Greetings, Kevin Brooks and Far Eye for Life. Lena, greetings, beloved. Evelyn, welcome so much. Kayla Talk, thank you so much. Abo Shishe, Ashe. And of course, my cousin, the beloved Oloye, Ifawole,
Oladeji.
Greetings, beloved.
How are you?
All is a blessing. Thank you so much for sharing your time, indeed in the middle of the day, to be a part of this powerful broadcast with me, this powerful podcast at high noon U.S. Central Standard Time. Of course, we're still learning sort of how to move this show forward. And I may be talking a little bit too much, too early in the show. And I've got to find a better way to sort of bring you in and integrate your message, your spirit, your offering, for each day that we do broadcast. So indeed, I want to give you an opportunity to speak for yourself, to represent yourself, to share what spirit might lay, what Olodumare and Olofi might lay on your heart at any given day to bring to the audience. It also allows me time to catch up with the chat.
No problem.
And the background activity.
Well, first I want to just greet everybody. We greet each other, Aboro Oboya Bashise, Alafia, peace. And so I greet everybody in peace. As my cousin has said, my name Oloye IleIfaOladeji, Efuntade. I am a student of Oba Ifekbeme Fashe Funsola, the founder of IleIfaOladeji temples. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to come and to both share and, of course, learn from all of you. We're doing this together, so I'm grateful to have always the opportunity to keep open mind, open heart, open spirit, to continue my learning and growing and evolving, as well as hopefully share something that will be beneficial to each and every one of you in your growth spiritually and in anything, whatever practices that you do. I do try to come from a very universal perspective as much as I can on everything, and a very practical perspective on everything that I can. And so that it just doesn't get so much into, I want it to go more into how we can practically use the things that we are learning in these traditions to be a major part of our everyday life. As we know, these traditions are not just it's not a religion. Religion is a man-made entity with their own laws and rules and such, but it's spirituality that trumps it all. And that then manifests into our lifestyle, into our everyday way of being. So I'm grateful that my cousin has allowed me the opportunity to come and do this with him. Not everybody is open to have somebody come and share and be a part, but I'm so honored and I'm so grateful for him for just giving me the opportunity to come and to be a part with you all. All of us make up the show together.
Asheo, give thanks. And I invite you, please, if you will, you can visit and share with us on my blog talk radio page. I was trying to get that into the chat at the top of the hour. And of course, things don't always quite go the way you expect them to when you're trying to type in the chat and start the show and click buttons at the same time. But you could call us at 845-277-9143. 845-277-9143. Okay. It's cutting off my message on some platforms. So I'm happy to really break it down. 845-277-9143. You can also visit the show page at blogtalkradio.com/the-divine-prince. And you must put those little those dashes in there in order for it to pull up the correct URL show page. Okay, oh, wait a minute. My last message cut off my StreamYard link. So please, we invite you to join us, co-host with us here, live on screen with your webcam and microphone, but you could also visit us by way of Blog Talk Radio and participate. Just be patient with me on Blog Talk Radio. Sometimes it takes a moment for me to scan over to that tab and see that people might be waiting. And always remember to press the number 1 on your telephone keypad, and I will be more than happy to unmute your mic and bring you in. So I think I've gotten the office work out of the way. So I wanted to share a little bit more. The first scholar to investigate the origins of magic in the African American slave culture was Albert Roboto, who documented his findings in Slave Religion, the Invisible Institution in the Antebellum South. He argues that the African styles of worship, ritual forms, and beliefs have survived in North America because of the openness of the religions to synchronization with other traditions. He explained how aspects of African culture, such as spiritual possession and other magical folk beliefs that can be interpreted as supernatural, were carried to North America through the Atlantic slave trade. He then traced how these original African notions of spirituality were incorporated into slave society and maintained despite conversion to Christianity. Roboteau was the first to analyze folklore, slave narratives, and missionary records in an effort to understand the breadth of slave religion and how the gods of Africa gave way to the God of Christianity by examining these sources. He successfully articulates the relationship between the natural and supernatural in slave religion. This focus on the intersection of slaves' culture, African heritage with their new faith, however, led him to overlook practices that contradict Christianity. Roboteau neglected to discuss how conjuration and voodoo beliefs about wandering souls and guardian spirits directly opposed the monotheism espoused by the church. By demonstrating how newfound Christianity and African traditions merge harmoniously into a creative and unique slave religion, Roboteau ignored contradictory spiritual beliefs that provided a limited analysis of magic in slave society. And indeed, we know anything that gave us power, anything that could be misinterpreted or miswritten as fearful or frightful, would of course have been eliminated from our language and our outward demonstration of sacrifice. Even though Big Mama and Big Papa, grew, cared for, and harvest all the food, on these plantations, still the idea of blood sacrifice for its ritual purpose would not be accepted and written into law until modern times, in recent modern times. So anything that could be conceived as scary, anything that could appear to give us an outward demonstration of power, and of course anything that directly opposed or contradicted Christianity was either stamped out or indeed forced to go underground. So when we look into the Black spiritualist churches, when we look into the old Southern Baptist church, when we look at the present day evangelical ministries, turn the volume down, change the language, to take the magical book out of the equation, and you're still looking at and observing a voodoo ceremony to a great degree. It's just a matter of our perception and our understanding. I'm a believer in magic. Let me be clear. I'm a believer in magic. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I know it when I see it. I know it when I feel it. The hairs on my arms stand up straight, but I'm also aware that there are active components to our life, to our world, to include COINTELPRO, that would otherwise dilute, bastardize, if not destroy, our connection to these more organic, natural ATR traditions, if they indeed can't control it, can't own it themselves. See, if they can own it, if they can use it, if they can benefit from it, great. It'll live on, but under someone else's control, domination, and influence. But if that can't happen, then it's destroyed. Then it's wiped out. And this is a practice that we've seen for at least the last 600 or 700 years throughout the world. So it's important that people like myself and Cousin, and those of you who are here, who are listening, who are watching, who are participating, that you be bold in your demonstration. You be truthful in your demonstration. You be organic in your demonstration. You be authentic in your demonstration. And we dare not have another generation rise up to 15, 16, 17 years old, 18 years old, 20 years old, and say that their parents didn't teach them anything about this, and say that their parents didn't share the truth of this with them and with their progeny. Indeed, with the technology that we have today, indeed with this information superhighway, indeed with the ability to connect with authentic practitioners in the tradition by way of technology, the world continues to get smaller. We shouldn't have another generation. Your children, those of you listening to me right now, who are raising children, who have children to come, there's no reason that your children should ever say what many of you have said, which is that you sensed that it was in your family, but no one talked about it. No one passed it down. No one instructed on the, demonstration. So I'm grateful to have that opportunity, that platform, for those who appreciate my demonstration. And I also appreciate having my cousin here, not just because we have so many things in common, but because we have our own lane, we have our own opinion, we have our own direction in which we're moving, in the universe. So I welcome diversity to the show. Greetings, Orisha beloved. Many of you know I've been welcoming diversity to the show for months now, but I wanted qualified co-hosts and representatives and speakers on the show. And so indeed, Inner Consciousness Live TV. Okay, somehow you are, okay, I got it. You're also in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I had a temporary brain freeze. I'm good now. Okay. I'm like, wait a minute, is it two? No. I said, okay, wait, he's in the chat. Yeah, so magic still exists. The supernatural still exists. Today, right now, in this divine moment in time space. And on a day like Ose Shango, it takes me back always to the first time I received a thunderstone naturally. Out in nature, when I say naturally. And I was at a place that at that time in my knowledge of the traditions, I thought, I'm looking for Mami Wata and Yimi Ya and Oshun. And so I'm in the water in Southern California. We were at the beach. And I love to collect shells and oddities of nature that you find, in the sand, on the beach. And we're in the water. And this thunderstone floats to me. It's black thunderstone, about this size. It smelled burnt. It smelled molten, but it didn't necessarily have wood patterns in it. So we never were clear as to where it came from. It very well may have been Aigan Yu, and it could have been spewed up in Hawaii and then washed up in the ocean and made its way to the beach of California. But it's the first time I encountered a thunderstone. That much I was clear on, that it was a thunderstone, that it was a gift from Shango, that it was a gift from the spirit. And it really was my motivating factor for wanting to get into, at that time, Santeria, and then learn other paths within the tradition. I can recount stories that I've had with Lowa, that I've had with Orisha, and I'm sure many of you under the sound of my voice can probably do so as well. Of course, there's always the dreams that they speak to in us. And cousin, I always teach that, we all have a unique and individual spirit language in which the Most High speaks to us in. So everybody's dream symbolism is not going to be the same. I know there are dream books out there that say if you dream about fish, somebody pregnant, my grandmother used to say that. But we all don't have the same relationship to fish. We all don't have the same inner symbolism in terms of communication with spirit. So I've always stressed journaling, not just experiencing, the dreams, but going out of our way to find time to stop, preferably right after you wake up, and record what you remember, record what you feel, and spirit indeed does speak to us, in dreams. But I like magic that shows up in the real world, right in your face, right where, people can see, others can witness, and I live for a day and a time where we walk freely in Western society as it is, and be proud to represent our traditions, not just to represent the botanicas. I like to pick at the botanicas because, not that there's a problem with the botanicas. I have botanica, many botanicas. Everybody has a botanica, online now. But the products that are being sold often don't support the authenticity and the reality of the traditions. You know what I'm saying? Just because it's a spray aerosol can with an Indian head on it, that doesn't make it magical, unto itself. The molds that people go in there and buy for Eshu, and Legba, and have no idea that it, something else must be added to that, must be included in that. Candles and sort of our association to candles and what appears on the outside of the candle, particularly now that anyone can pull up a program on their computer and put any image that they want on the candle. So we overlook intent. We overlook, and somebody mentioned the word yesterday, I never got a chance to get around to it, the placebo effect. And listen, I understand what the placebo effect is from a scientific perspective. We're going to give you the real vaccine, and we're going to give the other person sugar water, and and then monitor your symptoms and your behavior. I want to make it clear. I understand what placebo effect is. That's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about intent. And just like in the 12-step program, they say, choose a higher power, and your higher power don't necessarily have to be God. So I know people who are in the programs, AA and NA and whatnot, who the biggest tree in their community is their higher power. The biggest rock at the ocean front is their higher power. So I understand what placebo effect is, but I see that as being very different than the power of intent. Power of intent. And so we can will what we want into our reality. We also will what we don't want by over focusing on it, giving it energy, repeating it. When we say, oh, I can't trust anybody, your world has to demonstrate that. When you say, oh, I'm never going to be better than what I am, the world has to resonate with that. So the power of what we say, what we speak, particularly today when people have such easy and ready access to, Bing and Google and books and material, the power of really understanding what we say and doing that in authenticity indeed can create the environment for magic and for us to experience magic, in our daily lives. And indeed, science can look like magic. Nature indeed can look like magic. I think I've talked about that before in previous shows. I'm not talking about Hollywood magic, but, really life-changing, life-grounding, life-renewing, results. Things that really pay off from day to day as we make our way through this reality, through this world. And again, there's no reason for any of us that are in this chat right now, that are listening to me right now, to have another generation come behind us who can say that they didn't know, they weren't taught, they weren't educated, that there's no avenues for African Americans to assess a Khan or Yoruba culture or airway culture. And both of us are witnesses that that's not true. That's not true. There's also a mistruth that we don't like Africans and Africans don't like us. Again, I understand why that is a relative truth, but it's not an absolute truth. And in my experience, I've had very positive experiences with continent-born Africans. They appreciate my look, they appreciate my style, they appreciate my commitment, to their culture and their tradition. And often they don't expect that from us. They don't expect people to, like my cousin, to be able to roll that Yoruba off their tongue, so naturally and so organically. And many of us can. And it's not that we slow, some of us are Airway, some of us are Akan, some of us are Igbo, and just haven't settled in, to our ethnic place as of yet. But some of us are indeed Yoruba. And I have a great degree of Nigeria and Nigerian blood in my Ancestry.com. But I have a great deal more Ghanaian in my Ancestry.com. I don't know about you, beloved, but I have a great degree more. So I acknowledge the ethnic groups that carry with our ancestral connections in, Nigeria, to include Yoruba. And I often teach from Yoruba because it is the most prolific, the easiest accessible, the most amount of books, the most amount of elders that I can refer people to, who are authentic in the tradition. But I have a great deal of other ethnic groups that stand up. Now, y'all, please forgive me, I just told a lie. My number one ethnic country is Nigeria, 38%. And then Cameroon, Congo, Western Bantu, Benin and Togo, Ivory Coast, Mali, in that order, and Senegal, and with descending amounts of blood connection. But my number one country is indeed Nigeria. But there are so many ethnic groups in historic Nigeria and in Nigeria even as it is today that we don't acknowledge in our traditions, that we don't acknowledge. Marie wasp dropped nest on my porch right before people attack me in some way. I wonder what to do with them. I'm about to reveal my secret live on air. Hold on to them. Hold on to them. I hold on to them. Of course, I make sure that they're not infested, and usually they aren't. I don't know if it's something in the material that the wasp excrete that creates sort of that cocoon. So I've never seen, maggots or any other insects come out of them. But make sure it ain't a spider hiding in it. But I save them. And I keep them in jars. And when I'm going through battle, when I'm going through conflict with people, when I feel that sense of attack, I pull out those wasp nests. And of course, I got a process that I'm not going to go into great detail with, about what I do with them. And send me an email, Marie. We can talk about that. But yeah, I would hold on to them. There are not many things in nature that are not useful, that I don't find a way to hold on to, that I don't recycle in some kind of way. So yeah, I hold on to that. Another thing that I hold on to is bird's nests. And bird's nests are not as easy to come by as people might think. But when I do have one that's abandoned, within reach, somehow falls to the ground, I pick that up. We also have moss, Spanish moss, that just grows and hangs from the trees in New Orleans. That's one of the things that makes us a distinctive city. I think Savannah might have moss as well, but that's one of the things that make us distinctive. And so I also hold on to that. It's a great product for binding both negative and positive energy, depending on how it's utilized. Cousin, if you want to say something, just jump in when you're ready. Someone is
Okay.
asking, can we elaborate on taboos that come up in readings? Oh,
Okay.
this is a good one for you. Can you elaborate for me on taboos that come up in the readings and the importance of them?
Absolutely.
Give me just a second. I often find that I have to explain that because many people that come for readings, as I'm sure is the case with you, aren't familiar with Fa, Afa, Ifa at all. So they don't get that there are proverbs, that there are taboos, that there are instructions, that there's homework, that there are ebos that come with Odu. So please elaborate on taboos that come up in the readings and the importance of them.
That's a wonderful question. So I thank you for the question. When we do divination, when we do readings, we come up and we have what we call Odu Ifa, right? Odu Ifa are the books and scriptures of Ifa. And there are 256 books per se, Odu, in Ifa, with multiple verses that can vary according to family, according to geography, according to the expression of the tradition from where they have grown from. It's a fluid. It's a. Oh, you good?
Yeah, I call it lineage, depending on the lineage.
Right. So it's a fluid practice. So in the Odu Ifa, we have various medicines, various things that come out. Because of so many years, as we know, Ifa predates any of the Abrahamic traditions. Then through the experiences of the Babalaos or the people who have come before, it's all by experience that has already happened as to what works, what might not work. So when it says that this taboo is there, the taboo says that somebody had already lived this life and the prophet, maybe Orunmila, said, this particular scripture came up, verse came up, Odu came up and says, in this particular one, you should not be like eating corn. It's going to tell you in the script, in the verse, the Babalao said that this person was made to do this ebo, or was told not to do this thing. The person refused to listen and do, and such. In some verses, it will say, if this person would have listened, he would have been doing things or more healthy or more this or more that if he would have listened to what was told to him in this Odu. So the taboos, maybe a taboo would be this particular food. The food might not be a good alignment for your constitution. So that food that they tell you not to eat is because in your constitution, it's not going to do well for you. Even if you don't feel sick from eating it, in your constitution, it says this is not going to be in alignment. Now, for some, because they don't have maybe Orisha that they are initiated to or received. In some Orisha that are there's different foods that you should not be eating because it aligns with that Orisha. Maybe there's a sea deity, an ocean deity that says there's no person that should be eating fish. Why? Because that fish is that which is in that body. And then you're eating part of the Orisha that it's manifested within you. So therefore, they say taboo is don't eat fish. You're maybe Olokun, maybe you're Oshun, maybe you're Yemoya. Whichever one it might be, don't do this, right? Sometimes the taboo says that if you do this, it's disrespectful to that Orisha. Maybe it says that this could make you sick, and it has been making you sick over the years. And when you stop eating it, then maybe it takes a little while, but you'll see health improvements. You'll see mental health improvements. You'll see various improvements in relationships and different things, because in these taboos, it gives you the medicine to make life better. So that's a very brief and basic, definition of the taboos without going too deep and giving too many examples. The taboos for us are extremely important. And when you go up into various areas, you go and maybe you received your hand of Ifa, your Ishefa, it starts giving you the taboos. It's a discipline too. It's a discipline, a self-discipline that says, man, I like eating this, but because Ifa said this is not, you can't eat it for right now, are you going to ignore what Ifa said and then go and eat it anyway? Or are you going to listen, humble yourself, and discipline yourself to listen and not do that, so that, and then you start seeing changes because you're disciplining yourself, but you're showing Ifa that you're willing to sacrifice that which he had told you. So now sacrifice, a lot of times we constitute sacrifice with the animals and all that. And that's not the first sacrifice. The first sacrifice is the changing of thought and then the changing of behavior. And some of us might struggle with some of the things or aspects of the sacrifice, but those two things alone in the beginning of sacrifice is the sacrifice within yourself. Then all of the other areas of sacrifice will then manifest even to a greater extent because you disciplined yourself to listen to Ifa and to follow the guidance and wisdom of Ifa. Mm-hmm. So I hope that begins to answer. There's so much more to it, but sacrifice. Humble yourself to listen. Humble yourself to discipline yourself. Follow the taboos because there might be more to it than what meets the eye. And when it happens and you start seeing the changes in your life because you disciplined yourself not to maybe eat this or do this behavior or break this taboo, because taboos cross the line, they cross the gamut. They cross the gamut into behavior, they cross the gamut into food, they cross the gamut into just about everything in life. There's a taboo.
Places that you should and should not go.
Yes.
Certain extremes of weather that you should avoid. Otherwise, less, some, Osobo or Ibi become, mm-hmm. So indeed, it's a universal thing in ATR traditions. Yes. For those who are not familiar, we say Fa in Ewe or in Fan. The Igbo say Afa. So you'll often hear me interchangeably say Fa or Ifa. And people have been programmed to see those as two, almost contradictory things, mm-hmm. when they're indeed cousins, mm-hmm. siblings, of the same source. They both derive that 256 Odu system from IleIfe. Mm-hmm. And one became what we today associate with Voodoo, and one became what we associate today with Yoruba Ifa, and one became what we associate today with the Igbo Afa, and so on. So that's a universal concept. And I like to call it homework. Are we willing really to do the homework to gain access to the power, the energy, the response, the result that we might seek, at any given time? Mm-hmm. And how do you in your house, approach timing? Often in the demonstration, in the divination itself, mm-hmm. there's some idea of timing that's set out. But I often find that it's very different than how many clients who come who don't have a connection to the tradition, who don't have a connection to the religion, how they view timing. How do you address that? How do you explain to a person that, again, there may be work, ebo, sacrifice, homework that might need to be accomplished to sort of meet, a narrow, focused-in result that a person might be seeking at any given time?
It's just basically, to me, it's explanation and then giving opportunity for their own, their own choice. I share with them the importance of, listen, in this Odu, it says in order for this thing to manifest appropriately and in the best way possible for you, then this is what it is that they would like, the Orisha would like to do to give the spiritual power for this to manifest. Ifa wants this, Oshun wants this, maybe Shango wants this, Ogun wants this. And with these things, then you'll start seeing changes happening that you desire to have. Usually within 30 days, you want to make sure that you do the offering. If possible, you do it sooner than that. We can do it as early as. This is what Ifa says. What is it that you would like to do? Would you like to do the Ebo? Would you like to get this done? Especially those for outside the tradition, because it's almost like they feel sometimes that people be forcing this on them, and some of them just are not prepared, even though it's in their best interest. And for some, if they have a small Ebo that has to be done, to be honest with you, I might go ahead and do it for them, so that they are blessed with a positive outcome. I've done it for many. Positive outcome from it. I don't tell them that I did it. I do it and try to make it so that, a lot of it is experience. If they have good experience in their reading and good experience in being introduced to the tradition, we have more than a good likelihood that they're going to come back. And if they didn't do it this first time, by the second and third time, they're like, yeah, I want to get all of this done, and even be looking to go further into the tradition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I often find that is rooted in ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
I often say, for lack of better words, that I don't sell, I don't market, I don't promote.
Mm-hmm.
The ancestors sell themselves. So if I can get people, if I can get people to at least commit to ancestors, your ancestors, getting real about that, authentic about that, the rest generally follows. The rest generally comes behind. It's also at that point that you begin to realize who's ready to really let go of Western religious ritual and really embrace who they are out in the open. Because I'm still conflicted with the notion of people, sort of still keeping Ifa somehow in the closet. It's a secret, and I don't mean the violation of the mysteries, the initiatory processes, but I mean having done so and then still sort of remaining invisible, in the world, in the face of three dominant traditions that most people assume everyone else is a party of. People still look at me and assume that I'm Rasta, or assume that I might be a Muslim. They assume everything except Voodoo or Ifa. And wearing banners, wearing Ilekis, okay, that makes it easier to some degree. But as I was trying to share early in the show, people are buying them from the Botanica. And so it's become, a fashion statement. It's become a look. It's become a way for some young people to at least acknowledge an interest in, a curiosity in these root traditions. But until we start building Iles, houses, communities, helping each other, sharing with each other, feeding with each other, we're not going to build the foundation we need to really continue to fight against, the overt oppression of these other systems, and to see ATR, grow. During the pandemic, I've been blessed, blessed beyond measure. And so with the help of the city and the help of my community, I've gotten food, produce, milk, lentils, meat, all kind of substance to sort of survive. And particularly during that time when Walmart trucks wasn't rolling, and There was no dairy products on the shelf, and so on. I have a deep freezer. So I've been blessed. But let me tell you how hard it is to give some of that away, how hard it is to share some of that. It's harder than you might, imagine. So we've got to find a way to bring ourselves, bring this practice, bring the magic, bring the tradition out of the closet. And again, I'm not suggesting that we violate codes, but out of the closet in terms of, you're filling out that job application. Why are you still checking Christian? Why are you still checking Catholic? Why are you still checking Islam while you're seeking Loa, seeking Orisha, so seeking traditions that indeed are in line with an ethnic cultural footprint? And beloved, I want you to help me to speak to that, because that's one of the things that I think still remains quiet in this world of paganism and witchcraft and spiritual demonstrations. The fact that there indeed is an ethnic footprint to these traditions, because it never race into the conversation.
Right. One of the things that I find is that every step I take, every word that I speak, every breath that I take, every action is Ifa. So the first thing of somebody seeing Ifa is seeing how I am moving about in my everyday life. But when people see me, I have to be that representative of Ifa that allows for people to see our tradition in a positive light. And once they see it in a positive light, since they don't know what Ifa is, they already have a preconceived notion of what this, that, or the other thing is. And then when you speak to them, and you can speak to them intelligently, logically, and with honor and respect and good Iwa, they begin to see differently of what the tradition is. And then when they do that, they begin the process of asking questions. When they begin the process of asking questions, if you give them answers that are truthful, but yet, you are sharing with them on the level that they are, and you can easily make comparisons. When we do this, and this, maybe in your tradition, it's this and this, but we do it like this, and this. Once you're truthful to them, they begin to even have deeper thought and inquire more. How many times, cousin, do you have people that come and say, something just keeps drawing me to this? My ancestors keep drawing me to this. Something keeps drawing me to this tradition. Well, that's great. But then it is then how you introduce it to them in the reading. Some readings come in EB and the messages are like, but then you have to find a way to be like saying the truth. Don't lower the message, but to be able to find a gentle way to give them the message so that it doesn't totally just turn them off, but it helps them to see, I got to make certain changes. They're going to be important for my life to get even better. It's really about those of us who are already walking that path and that journey, for people to watch and see our lives as an example for that which we would like for them to manifest in their own life.
Yeah, sometimes it's a challenge, beloved. Sometimes it's a challenge and a struggle, and the time I've had to increase the assumed time, the approximate time for my consultations, for people before they actually do the reading. You want to give them an idea of how long they're going to be sitting with you.
Right.
I've had to increase that because I have to educate and re-educate. I find it very difficult to understand people who give readings, give services, but don't educate. You ask people, well, what happened and what did you do? And they don't know what it's called, and they don't know what processes were done. They just know that they spent money. They just know they went looking to somebody for help. And again, it comes back to how committed are you to really taking on this power, this tradition, this history as a lifestyle, as opposed to still interacting with these traditions, much like Hollywood, seeking remedies, for your finances, remedies for your love, gree, ritual work, as opposed to really stepping into the tradition. Now, there are people in this audience right now, godchildren of mine, who have taken it on, husband and the wife, the children, the grandchildren. They are determined that their family and their next generation is not going to go into it with the same Christianized, Islamicized chains that have held us for so many centuries. And so it's a challenge. I think we need to decide to some degree, are we here to not only represent Ifa and represent Voodoo now and in the present, but are we representing an Ifa and a Voodoo that will survive
for the future?
For the future, as legitimate, right, as authentic. I'm sure there'll forever be tarot cards. Tarot cards probably will never disappear. They will continue to evolve as they have done, but it has no root to cultural specific connections.
That's correct.
This, as the world gets smaller, as the world continues to integrate, as we continue to mix blood, we are often losing our history, losing who came before, losing the information, of time. And we're leaving it to science to discover. We're leaving it to science and archaeologists, to later explain, to the next generation. It's never lost on me. I'm looking for the right word. It's never lost on me the power, even the reality of what anyone listening to me right now, the sound of my voice, can leave in the archive that will survive us in a way that did not exist, when we were young or in previous generations. These hard drives, these disks, these internet conversations will outlive many of your great grandchildren.
Absolutely.
So
once it's in the wave, once it's in the web, it's there forever.
Yeah. So use it wisely. Use it to demonstrate a footprint of what these traditions really are. Document your magic. Document your connection, to spirit. But be true to it. Let's be authentic to it.
That's right.
My phone lines are still available at 845-277-9143. And I'm not going to force anybody to talk today because I do have appointments. I have people waiting even to get into the house. So don't feel pressured, beloved cousin, to, fill out a whole 2 hours. I would love to.
Whenever you decide, it's your show, cousin. So I'm just here for the ride with you and to hopefully bless people with some information. I think there was a question that I saw, something about how do you do the offerings from Sister Nina Lloyd. And so just an easy thing is like, when spirit gives you the energy that you want to do something to maybe do something for a particular feeling that you have, Orisha, that you might have manifesting through you or whatever, then maybe give, water is good for everybody. For like something, like if you feel Oshun, maybe just something with honey and some cinnamon. If you feel something for Shango, maybe just some apples. You feel something for Ogun, maybe you get something of metal and you put it in a bowl and you present it, that your life will be as strong as the metal. that you'll be able to build like Ogun built, you know, and help build society. So, you know, you can use different things if you feel led to give an offering for a particular energy that you feel. I would just suggest that you look up some of the things that that particular energy accepts. So you give them something and give a sincere prayer that even though you're not initiated or have received it, that, you know, that particular energy will work on your behalf and assist you.
Mhm.
That's just something very, very basic.
And from my understanding, it's only by divination for those who are initiated that Ebo, that sacrifice, is determined, and is a way of marking, you know, sort of a grocery list, for lack of better words, of what spirit might be asking for, might be standing up for. But that's for people who are deeper into the traditions, or who are
Correct.
committed to the traditions, you know, at a much more personalized level. It was almost like you were reciting Ose Ifa, and you did every day except Obatala. And so you
Yes.
might give, you know, white offering, you know,
Yes.
white cloth, white candle, white foods,
Mm-hmm.
to feed, placate that power and that spirit. And
That's right.
always your ancestors, things tend to be personalized.
Mm-hmm.
So we could say coffee, water,
Mm-hmm.
you know, of course, food,
Fruit.
flowers, fruit,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
produce.
Mm-hmm.
But then it can be much more specific if you're feeding particular ancestors. You know, those maybe that you knew, great grandparents even. You know, and you knew they had a favor for one thing or the other. So
Mm-hmm.
there are ways to, in a general sense, always feed and placate and acknowledge spirit
That's
in a
right.
way that doesn't have any negative repercussions to it.
That's
And I
right.
like how Cousin said, you know, do some research. Don't be afraid to do some research. And don't assume the first thing that shows up in the search engine. Oh my goodness, there's just too many authentic practitioners who are as easily available through your device as
Mm-hmm.
Google and Bing,
Mm-hmm.
that you can get real responses from, real
Mm-hmm.
truth from, about how we
Mm-hmm.
operate in, you know, in the traditions. I also like fire, offerings of fire, depending on the circumstance. Fire is a very powerful element in voodoo, and not just when we're, you know, invoking Ogu, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
but the ability to not only destroy, to get rid of, to remove, but also to create and recreate from fire.
Mm-hmm.
The way we produce metals, the way we
Mm-hmm.
produce fine gold and silver, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the ability to use fire in its appropriate connotation, you know,
Mm-hmm.
is another powerful offering
Mm-hmm.
that we sometimes give or sometimes make. I'm always just a little bit uncomfortable sharing certain information because I just have this feeling somebody's going to hear it and do the wrong thing, hear it and burn their house down, you know,
Mm-hmm.
hear it and misapply it. And that's what makes me uncomfortable about Google search and
Mm-hmm.
search students.
The biggest thing, though, is for people to understand that regardless of all of that, the first sacrifice they can make or the first offering that they can make is sincerity in prayer. If you are truly sincere in your prayers to whatever energy you are feeling at the time, if you're not, you know, initiated or have received this particular Orisha, then sincere prayers will be the first thing that you can do. If you have an ancestor altar, sincere prayers to your ancestors and sit down and speak to them as you would speak to anybody else and say, this right here is my issue. This is my challenge. This is my struggle. And I need you to guide me through. I need you because of your experience, you who have gone through these experiences in life, the blood that runs through my veins, you who have lived a life before me, you whose example has laid, let me complete the work that you have done. But please, at this time, my family is going through this, and this. Great. Please give me the wisdom, the guidance, the support, the strength, the courage, the endurance to move forward through this time and make wise choices that are in alignment with my destiny to be able to move forward and overcome this situation. You, my ancestors, you, the ones who love me, please do not let me fall. Do not let our family fall. Give us what we need to push through forward, to make manifest what we need.
That's right.
Sincere prayer.
That's right. And if you can, by all means, recite names.
Yes.
We're talking about your ancestors, when we're talking about the spirit, when we're talking about Oloye, when we're talking about Orisha, that you have a relationship with, because it's about building relationship. And call them by name. And in the case where you don't know name, I invoke the spirit, the power, the wisdom of ancestors, both known
and
unknown, in all things. So I hope we address the offering question, at least from a general standpoint. We got many people on the phone lines, but no one has raised their hand. 845-277-9143. And of course, you can follow the STREAMYARD link and join us here on screen with your question, comment, or request. I'll be more than happy to bring you in and let you share space with us here on today's podcast. Otherwise, I'm going to be moving forward in about 7 minutes.
And please let my cousin know the feedback that you have from our getting together and doing the show together. Give us some feedback on maybe even some topics that you would like to talk about, so we can, possibly incorporate those topics in some of the shows as well. So it's important that you guys are a part of this. The show. You're taking the time to sacrifice your time to come and hopefully grow, learn with us. And so, sacrifice is a thing of energies, right? You give and you take, you get. And so we want to be able to make sure that some topics, can be blessed. That you all have topics blessed as well.
And Sandra Fraser, how does that work? I think maybe my cousin and I both sort of collectively responded to that, but I'm going to say a little bit more momentarily. S. Marie, there are many deities, Loa and Orisha, that like cigars and whiskey. And if you are indeed uninitiated, and forgive me because it's hard for me to remember who's working with me and to what degree, because I know you and I have a relationship beyond the show, S. Marie. I just can't remember right now where we are in things, but I'm going to assume that if we are working together, we're doing ancestors. So those cigars, that whiskey, that coffee, that water, that produce, that flowers goes to your ancestors. Listen, my godparents coming into this, and many of them said, baby, you getting by on your ancestors. Just no offense, just set what we know about Loa to the side, what we know about Orisha to the side, or what we assume that we understand, as African Americans about how these deities work. Most of us, many of us, if not all of us, are getting by on our ancestors. And then that initiation, that training, that experience, that knowledge of interacting with spirit develops. So, if you're asking your question, who likes cigars and whiskey, sort of from an intuitive, empathic perspective, I would say feed your ancestors. And don't be afraid, y'all, to go to the cemetery. Think about it. Plan it out. These are things that have to be a part of your lifestyle. I know where at least 5 cemeteries are within the range of my house.
Mm-hmm.
I also know where my ancestors are buried.
Mm-hmm.
My mother's mother and father, and my father's father's mother and father. I know where they're buried. And then I know to some extent beyond that where they are. So I make that a part of my practice.
Mm-hmm.
And when I can't, travel up the highway, and go out into the rural area where many of my greats are, I go to what's available here, within my community,
Mm-hmm.
and show due respect. Don't take or leave plastic in the cemeteries.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take or leave metal cans and trash in the cemeteries. Be very respectful.
Mm-hmm.
Already uncomfortable, that we're doing what they don't quite understand. So be respectful. Leave organic things. Leave things that are naturally going to break down, food product,
Mm-hmm.
flowers, and feed your ancestors at least once a year.
Yes.
Many of us families, had the summer vacation, summer break. Many of us travel back home during the summer break. I grew up in the DMV. Many of you know that. I was born in Chicago, grew up in the DMV, and then we would come down south every summer. We would come down south and have the sort of the family reunion. And it's from that, even before I was initiated, that I developed the rhythm
Mm-hmm.
and the practice and the ritual of at least annually going home to that land and talking to them, feeding them, presenting offering to them. And then as a part of my regular 4-day week, there's a day, that we acknowledge ancestors, that we acknowledge Egun.
That's right.
And so I have ancestral shrine in the house.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I have 3 ancestral shrines in the house, 2 upstairs on either side of the house, and then one more general one downstairs that's open to my clients that come and go, where we acknowledge and feed their ancestors. I'm often asked, what do you do with produce once it goes bad? I then have an outside shrine in my backyard for Egun where I carry that. So all my organic material goes back to nature, goes back into the ground. It's a hole in the ground. It might sound familiar to my cousin. It's a hole in the ground, and it's got a cinder block on top of it, so the hole has never closed.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the hole was created by termites that ate up a huge tree that used to be in the yard. That's been gone since Hurricane Katrina. So I just dropped that cinder block down in that hole, and it's at the foot of a palm tree. Shango loves palm trees, and that's where I take that spent produce, that coffee that's within a day developed mold on it. That's where I take those products. I never discard them in my house. I never pour them in my sink, in my toilet, in my trash, in my house. We take that outside. We remove that, and then of course there's cemeteries. And some of you might not have access to a cemetery. You might live, I don't know where you might live where you don't have access. You might not have access to a private cemetery or a cemetery where you feel comfortable. You might have cemeteries that have too much security watching you, so you might feel a little bit uncomfortable. Then there's nature. Then there's the river, the stream, the ocean, the lake, the woods, the sacred tree, the sacred rock. When I lived in Denver, Colorado, back in the past life, I used to love to go up into the mountains. We had sacred spots up in the mountains, little caves and cubby holes and places where we could get, mountain water from, just reconnect, with the magic that lies in nature. So that's what I would do with the spent offerings. And one more thing before I pass the mic. Beloved cousin, have you ever had produce that just won't die?
Yes.
I have
Milk.
I have a watermelon that die. It still looks fresh. The watermelon has been on the altar 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
The oranges have been on the altar 5 months.
Yes.
And they've petrified. You know, they rock hard, but they have their color, they have their shape. There's no mold, there's no mildew. It's almost like spirit mummified them without us doing anything to it.
That's right.
I've had liquor, because some liquor, some coffee, some water, I pour on the ground, even at the shrines or on the ground. But some offerings I put in cups. I've had coffee crystallize. I mean, no mold, no milk, just crystallize like rock candy. I've had liquor crystallize, turn completely hard, like a rock. You know, no, doesn't go bad. You know, and so I don't disturb those products.
That's right. They say, I want that. It's staying here.
Yeah, I don't disturb those products, or I then incorporate those products into gree and other forms of work. But then I've had coffee, you know, 4 hours. It's got mold on it.
Mold. Yep.
And so people say, well, what does that mean? You know, some things the ancestors accept, some things the ancestors don't accept. They can be moody and temperamental because they are or have had a human incarnation. You know, so sometimes they're satisfied and sometimes they're not. And that's where Obi Obata comes in. Obi Obata. And I like Obi Obata with cola nuts, by the way, cousin. I can use cowrie shells, but if I can get the cola nut, I do. Many of my clientele bring cola nuts into the house when they come to visit.
That's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, so I like to do Obi Obata with the ancestors using real cola nuts and ask, you know, is this enough? Is this acceptable? You know, is this offering, you know, meeting the needs of this moment in time space? And watch their responses, you know, and it's crazy in a magical way. It's crazy what they say yes to, what they say no to, and then we look at how it manifests on the table. So we live in magic. We are magic. If you break down the science of why we're here and how we're living and how we're breathing and how our body works, and this is nothing but magic. Science don't make any sense. Science is not practical. You know, how the universe is spinning and holding itself in place is magic. It's magic. But, you know, we're being influenced. You know, we're being reprogrammed by technology. And I think there's a reason for that. We're evolving again as humanity. And some fear we might be intermerging with technology. Humanity might be intermerging with data systems. You know, we're now wearing chips. All your dogs got a chip. You know, so we're beginning to sort of merge. You know, again, it's a two-edged sword. On the one hand, I can say, oh, wow, that's scary. That's dangerous. That, you know, and it is in the wrong hands. But at the same time, it's data, technology, that's Fa. That's Ifa. So we've always had data. We've always had technology. We've always had this higher energetic system of learning, which was often reserved for the initiated, the private societies. You know, we now say Illuminati, which is really a general word, you know, of enlightenment that could really encompass many groups, including Ifa. You know, Ifa could be considered Illuminati. You know, if we look at how Illuminati is perceived by many people today. And I believe Illuminati, if there indeed is a thing, is available to all people whose consciousness has sort of been open. But how you use that enlightenment, how you use that enlightened energy, how you use that enlightened information separates the good from the bad. It separates those who would otherwise oppress and control the world versus those of us who are using aspects of this science to heal and to restore and to return people back to, back to a healthy state where we indeed are then able to advance in technology, but in a way that's healthy. And just as we're working to eliminate, cancer, let's continue to work to eliminate the cancers that plague ourselves and our communities, that keep us from being healthy, that keep us from being prosperous, that keep us from developing, villages that support the grassroots structure. Please, if you local, contact me, call me. We got 3 community gardens over here and my own garden. We need help sometimes. We need hands sometimes. But we also like to share. I've given away my kumquats. I've given away my little hot peppers, the ones you see in the Popeye's chicken TV commercials. I got a couple of bushes of those in my yard. I've given away just pounds of beans. I still have beans and lentils and rice and popcorn, that I can share, indeed, if you're here locally. I'm learning to better use the mail. Arisha and a few others are helping me sort of get that together. I'm a little slow on the mail, but I'm doing better. I've got to get a better system together. I do not have a car. So, Ubering or walking, it's always something in between me and the post office. So if I have a supporter watching, listening, you want to gift me with a car, I would certainly appreciate that. I really would. But getting herbs, getting seeds, getting organic material into the mail and sending that out to people is something that I'm striving to do. Let me look at the calendar. Between now and the 14th. I also have some people who are waiting on pots. We do our ancestral work here, cousin. One of the implements, or I should say some of the implements that I mail back to the client are clay pots. They're right behind me. I don't know if y'all can see them. So 2 of them like this. One would be for, maternal lineage. The other would be for paternal lineage. And then one like this. And I call this the mouth of creation, or the container of life. And in this is where we keep our kola nuts, our 4 cowrie shells, our implements that we use to do obiabata. Where we communicate with the ancestors. Okay. So that slowed down, obviously, right at the middle of at the middle of February of last year. That slowed down because of COVID-19. Understood. So many of the botanicas are really just now getting some of those products, back on the shelves. So getting things in the mail right now is what I'm striving to complete in the next 7 days, along with the other things that are on my to-do list. Understood. Okay, I'm trying to follow the chat. Give me a second, y'all. I think I fell behind.
Queen, it was like Queen Sheba, I believe it was. Who is it that you want to get the contact information to? She had a question of how do we contact you? So I'm not sure who she wants to contact.
Okay, I did put my email address, divineprince@houseofthedivineprince.com in the chat. And that's how I prefer that you contact me. I also have a contact sheet, or a contact link, if you will, on my website at www.houseofthedivine, Prince, PRINCE.com. and you can also contact me that way. I welcome you to reach out to me in social media, wherever you all may be following me, but I'm only going to copy and paste a link back to my email. My cousin's information, he can speak for himself, but I also placed the name of his Ile, the location, the phone number, and the Gmail address in the chat, beloved. But you can still repeat it again for yourself so they don't know how to contact you.
Sure. I just put up my email address. One of them is INNERKONSCIOUS@gmail.com. Another one is Ile, ILEISESE. IleIfaOladeji is OLADEJI. So all one word. IleIfaOladeji @gmail.com. And I believe that my cousin put up my phone number, so you're more than welcome to call or text me first, though, so I know who's calling me, in case I don't like answering the phone if I don't know whose number pops up. So just text me and let me know that it's for that, and I'll be happy to take your call and speak to you. If anybody desires dafa, or what we call reading, divination or reading, I'll be happy to do that. And then according to what Ifa says, then we'll see what we have to do to move forward. So I'm always happy to assist in any way that I can. And I look forward to anyone that desires to do that. And that's it. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here again. And I'm grateful for my cousin and his work. He's doing absolutely wonderful work down there. My daughter wants to come down there now, and so my daughter and I will make a trip probably within the next few months to go down there and spend some time. And so she wants some food, cousin. So I hope you know where all the good joints are, because she can eat almost she can eat more powerful than me now.
And I'm gonna be honest, the best cooks in New Orleans are at home.
Okay.
Local New Orleanians don't eat at the restaurants, don't eat at the tourist spots. Occasionally, you get a feel for going out, but best foods is not, in my opinion, is not at the restaurants.
Okay.
It's at people's houses. It's at the church. It's at the second line. It's on the street. It's at the events. Oh yeah, when they have a second line, all of a sudden guys show up out of nowhere, like magic, with rolling carts, barbecue grills on wheels, with ribs and andouille and all kind of stuff on there. Just it's crazy. A second line can happen in a matter of minutes.
Man.
Of course, the family knows the second line is going to happen. The brass band knows the second line is going to happen. And there might be a core group of friends, family, community that know the second line is going to happen. But for the most part, most people don't know it until you hear the brass band. And then you run out into the street. And so you see the beer man with a cooler on wheels full of beer, full of cold drink. Y'all say soda, y'all say pop, we say cold drinks. Full of cold drinks, full of liquor, and just as quick as the second line starts, everybody's gone.
Wow.
Once it rolls through, everybody disappears, and the neighborhood goes back to normal. I try to share it on TikTok. I try to share it on Facebook and Instagram. It's a powerful experience to live in New Orleans. I don't need to brag or sound presidential, which I am presidential to my own city. But man, I've lived all over America. Let me be clear. A kid on the street at 14, and then living from coast to coast, east to west, north to south. I've lived everywhere for the most part. It's nothing like New Orleans. New Orleans is the most African city in America. New Orleans is the most northernest Caribbean city in America. You can pull fruit off the trees. here, bananas and mango and kumquats. You know, what neighborhood you're in, it's just nothing like it. So that feel that I get for the motherland is somehow satiated here. I'd love to go to Africa. I'm planning to go to Africa. I would appreciate support to go to Africa. If you're in Africa and you can get us there, we'll come. But man, I feel Africa in Congo Square. I feel Africa in the architecture of New Orleans, in the rhythm and the beat and the energy of the city of New Orleans. So for me, it placates that feeling for home. Ziggy Marley, dreams of home, those dreams of Africa. For me, that is fulfilled to some degree here. And I know we have a purpose here. You know, it's great to be able to return to the motherland. It's great to be able to visit other places outside of, you know, the US and our experience. But indeed, there is room for people like us to really develop our culture right here and make it that much more rich, that much more accessible, and further develop our relationships with nations and communities outside the country. So I work every day to build relationships with Nigeria and with Ghana and with Honduras and with Black people who practice these traditions in other parts of the world. I have a great relationship with Brazil. I have a house in Brazil, if I didn't tell you. I have a voodoo house in Brazil. It's being run by a Brazilian female voodoo practitioner. Voodoo is just as rare in Sao Paulo, Brazil, as it is in America.
Wow.
To give you some idea. It is surrounded by candomblé. And candomblé is, you know, a little closer to Ifa, you know, in the Americas, as opposed to what we call voodoo. So they separate voodoo and Ifa in Brazil, much like they do here in the US.
Okay.
I don't want to ignore y'all's questions. Sandra Frazier, absolutely. Please email me. I'll be glad to counsel with you. Queen Sheba, I hope we answered your question. You should know how to reach either of us. River, if Baron comes to your dreams, it could be a message. I always suggest people journal. It's really hard to take one isolated dream and sort of make a whole lot out of it if you're not journaling your dreams regularly. Because again, everybody has a unique inner symbolism that spirit speaks to you in. And sometimes you need to see it more than once. You know, you see a dream, you have a dream, and then you experience something in the real life. And you begin to put those pieces together. Sometimes they don't always speak clearly in a dream. Hey, go right, stop. You know, rarely do the spirits speak to us, even God speak to us in dreams in that way. So you got to record those dreams, write down those dreams. I would even suggest to some degree what else is going on in your life, you know, each day as these dreams sort of happen, and you'll get a better understanding of what that message is. I'm not a fear monger, but when you say Baron, let's be clear, you're talking about the dead. The Baron is a representative of the dead, and he's a darker representative of the dead. He's a much more aggressive and hot, petro, aggressive demonstration of the dead, as opposed to Papa Gede, which is considered to be above ground in the daylight, a little more friendlier and easier to access. So when you say Baron, that gives it a sense of gravity that I don't want to promote without knowing the other details that are happening in these dreams that involve Baron. I mean, it could be predicting death. It could be predicting your own death. It could be predicting the death of someone else. So you want to be clear about what's being said. It's Baron that you're seeing and experiencing. There was another question. Where did it go? All right, Queen Sheba. I went to Bradbury Heights Elementary School. I went to Francis Scott Key Junior High, but they've changed the name to something else now, Francis Scott Key. I went to Suitland Senior High, which they've changed the name to like Suitland Technical School or something or another. Yeah, I was educated in the DMV. I like to talk about flowers, Eve Bayou, because if you prepare your flowers right, well, I shouldn't say right, in specific ways, they too can be preserved. I like to hang my flowers upside down, take that rubber band and stick a push pin through it and pin it to the wall over the shrine. And I let those flowers dehydrate naturally. And often I can keep roses for years if they're prepared properly. So I try not to let flowers just die. I'm into edible plants, medicinal plants, airway. So I'm not into, just sort of not finding a way to best utilize or recycle vegetation. So I don't put my flowers, in water and stand them up and sort of let them die like that on my altar. I try and preserve them to the best of my ability ahead of time going in. And my grandmother, may she rest in her room, she used to spray hairspray on her flowers, but not while they fresh. Once they dehydrate, she would spray a little hairspray on them and it would keep them together. Every now and then I put rose oil, on the flowers to give them some freshness, refreshed fragrance. So yeah, I find a way to do something with my flowers. Queen Ashley, greetings, beloved. I think I just put the connection together. Okay, another one of my clients and godchildren. Is burning of ancestor money something that is actually helpful, or is it just a trend? Now, I'm not going to assume what my cousin's going to say because we ain't never talked about this before. So I'm going to give my answer and I'm going to let him give his answer. And again, I have no idea what he might say. But for me, it's a trend. It's a trend. I can't go back in history. I can't go back in time. I can't go back in archaeology and documentation and find any ritual practice of burning money. Our people didn't even have relationship to money in the way that we sort of symbolize it today. If indeed they had money, it was cowrie shell. It was natural. It was cola nut. It was palm oil. If indeed, monetary value came into the picture. So I would say no. But I would also say that if you are offering libation, offering palm oil, offering from your reserve of rum, offering from your reserve of goods, you're giving value. You're still giving away, your monetary value. But the trending thing of burning this fake money, this Chinese money, this foreign money, no, that's a trend, in my opinion. That's a new thing. It's visible. It's something that, is easy to throw up on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok. But that's a new thing.
Okay. From the traditional perspective of Ifa, I agree exactly with what my cousin said. And we do not have any type of anything like that for the burning of the money. From the other side, from my inner conscious spiritual center, I have different people from different ways of operating through their spiritual methodologies. I have seen it work for them. They do different things and rituals with it. And I've seen, that some money has come for it. For us in traditional side, we go to Aje, who is the daughter of Olokun, and we do offerings to Aje in order to facilitate, and to Olokun and to Oshun, in order for us to be facilitating money in the traditional sense. So I agree with my cousin. And then on the other side, I have seen people who do that practice, and the practice, you know, they've been able to make it successful at whatever level.
Thank you kindly for that. Craig Burns, I have no idea what you're talking about. There is no Haitian ritual that I'm aware of that involves tear gas. That's a rumor at best. And I'm saying that considering I've never ever heard that from a Haitian. I've never heard that from an American who's traveled to Haiti. That's just not true, in my opinion. I could see how a rumor of sorts could sort of grow out of Haitian history, you know, with rioting and wars and tear gas and, you know, protesters and sort of things in that sense. But I'm not understanding Haitian tear gas. Now, chili and brandy and rum, yes. There is a practice of steeping, you know, almost like you pickling peppers in liquid, in liquor, in high volume alcohol liquor. And so if someone is under possession of a particular deity, it's really easy to tell if someone is faking, if they are rubbing that mixture in their eyes, or if they're consuming that mixture without getting sick or without having some sort of immediate response to it. So yeah, chili and brandy is a practice. Santeria, Lukumi, Sanse, Maria Leonza. You find that out throughout the Americas, wherever you find the footprint for ATR. And sometimes, cousin, I use voodoo as a sort of an umbrella word for all of ATR. Because when you talk to a Christianized Nigerian, Ifa voodoo to them, they don't make no distinction between voodoo. In some cases, they don't make a distinction between witchcraft and Ifa if they've been, you know, really Christianized or Islamicized to some degree.
Indeed.
But it really has to do with ethnic group and language. So Ifa is specific to Yoruba, Akan is specific, you know, to the Akan people and the ethnic groups of that Akan umbrella, and so on. So sometimes I say voodoo and it's an umbrella word. Yeah, so that peppers and liquor, yeah. Even the story of Marie Laveau is said to have overturned, defeated legal cases with hot peppers, hot guinea peppers. And she would actually, you know, sort of amalgamate Catholic practices and voodoo. And it is said that she would go into the church of Guadalupe here, eye shot from my house, 3 blocks from my house. And she would pray at the altar, and she would light her candles, and she would put 3 guinea peppers in her mouth, and she would pray.
90 seconds.
So she believed that her suffering, her sacrifice, her ebo would get her prayers through, you know, to heaven, would get her prayers through to Orun, to use Yoruba. So, yeah, there are all kind of usages of prayer, of peppers. And different substances, things that are sweet. You know, sometimes I might put honey on a client's tongue. Sometimes I might put pepper on a client's tongue, depending on the Odu and what the issue, request, block, blessing is that might be present, you know, on the board.
Absolutely.
We got about 30 seconds, beloved. You want to say some peace and blessings before we wrap it up?
Thank you all. And good night.
Odabo. And I look forward to meeting with you, connecting with you here at high noon, US Central Standard Time, next time for Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes, along with my beloved cousin, and some Ifa history and tradition and education. And I look forward to meeting with you again, remembering that all is truly and indeed a blessing.
10 seconds. seconds.
if you can just see beyond the veils.
Ashe.
Ashe.